Good afternoon. Happy Sunday. Welcome back to Facebook Live in the series Eating the Elephant, where we break the elephant of Hurricane Michael recovery into bite-sized pieces for you. We're going to talk a little bit about recovery in general and insurance issues tonight. I appreciate everybody giving us a break on Wednesday. I hope that everyone was able to spend a little time with family and enjoy a little bit of time off from hurricane, hopefully, and avoid the piles and avoid the mess and avoid the downed trees. And just sort of enjoy family and enjoy a little break. Thursday actually was probably the first day that a lot of folks have taken off. I think it was my first day off since the storm. And so I think it was good for probably everybody to rest, get a little rejuvenation, and maybe take a little mental break as well from all of this. And I think everybody will be able to hit the ground running on Monday, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. I know that during this particular time, a lot of times it seems like we take 2 steps forward and 1 step back, and I can illustrate that with a story from just a couple of hours ago. I went to Publix, which is sort of my habit on Sundays because I cook dinner for the family on Sunday nights, and I got there and I got the very front parking space. And I don't mean very close, I mean the spot, which was the prime real estate. Astonishing. So much so I almost drove by it because I figured it had to be a handicap spot and it was just a mistake. So I parked and I strutted out of the car and rolled into Publix, and I was feeling a little victorious. I know that's a small victory. And then when I got to the checkout line after shopping and gathering all my things, I realized I'd left my wallet at the house. So 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And you just have to smile and kind of roll with the punches and get on with your day. So I came back to the house, got my wallet, went back to Publix, and I think a lot of what's going to happen now is going to be potentially frustrating, and a lot of what your results are going to be have a lot more to do with how you react to difficult situations as opposed to those difficult situations themselves. So I would like to say that I think it's going to be key for all of us to manage our frustrations because some of this process will continue to be frustrating. I know that finding contractors is challenging, and some of us are making mistakes in that regard. We certainly have made a little slip or two. But something that have done in the past, I've been teaching scuba diving for probably 20 years now, and breathing is obviously pretty important when you're underwater. And we had a sort of a saying, when something went wrong, maybe you got tangled up in some fishing line or something happened underwater, people tend to react badly to situations like that. And so we had a habit of saying stop, breathe, think, breathe, and then act. And taking that little extra step instead of being reactive immediately to a situation, I think will give you much, much better results. But let's get into a little bit about what's going to happen this week, I think, for everybody. Tomorrow morning is going to be important for a lot of us. Everybody's taken a couple of days off. Some folks haven't talked to anybody about hurricane stuff, an adjuster or a contractor or anything like that, since Wednesday of last week because everyone took off Thanksgiving and some folks took off Friday and the weekend. We did at our agency, and like I said, it was a very welcome respite for all of us. But what's going to happen is that's going to be an awful lot of stored energy. It's what my high school science teacher would have called potential energy. And what we're going to do Monday is we're going to turn all of that into kinetic energy all at one time. In other words, all of this stored up energy and wanting to talk to people and the potential for work is going to all come flowing out of this pipeline first thing Monday morning. So I suspect a lot of you will be on the phone, as I will on Monday morning, talking to insurance people and talking to contractors, things like that. What I would say is particularly don't get frustrated first thing in the morning on Monday because there's going to be a little bit of a rush to get everything done and to try to do all on Monday morning that we weren't able to do over the last 4 days. So again, try to be a little bit patient and try not to be too reactive. My suggestion would be, honestly, is to wait until right after lunch. I think that's going to be a much better time to start chasing down adjusters and contractors and things such as that. And that's personally what I'm going to do. I'm going to see if it works. And if it works, I'll tell you about it. And if I've made a mistake, I'll certainly tell you about that as well. But I'm pretty confident that trying to get the most emergent situations done first thing Monday morning is going to be the way to go. And then if you've got the time to wait and to be a little more thoughtful about what you're doing, I think right after lunch is your better approach. But again, I think the pipeline's going to be a little full, and when that clog comes shooting out on Monday morning, I don't want you to get frustrated with that. Again, that's less of an insurance issue than I think it is a general kind of a general activity issue. And I just know how things work after a long weekend. And 4 days just seems like an eternity in the post-Michael world. Let's get into the insurance thing, and let's get into things that are a little more topical and things you probably want to talk about. Some of the questions we've gotten. The number one thing now is, how do we find a good contractor? How do I get a contractor to show up, to keep an appointment, and to actually sign on and do the work? Well, I'll tell you what, that's a real tough one, and it's not specifically an insurance issue, but it's something that I think we still need to address. I'll tell you, at our house here, we still have a tarp up. And in fact, we've opened up a very, very nice condominium for squirrels in our attic, because everybody, all the trees being down, the squirrels have nowhere else to go. So we're serenaded each night with a little tap dance, which is, you try to find charming, but it's a little, it's just not something you want to do. Things like that are kind of unavoidable. But I think as far as getting a contractor on your property, the number one rule is persistence. You just have to be persistent. And I talked earlier about how to deal with your adjuster, and that you should be persistent with them, that you should call them. And if every single day you need to make that call and remind them that you need attention, I think that's not being annoying. That is advocating for yourself. And the squeaky wheel, I think, is going to get the grease. And so I would be just as persistent with my contractors as I've advised you in the past to be with your adjusters. Reach out to your networks, talk to your friends, talk to your neighbors, talk to people who know contractors. We've tried to build a little bit of a resource board at our agency, and mostly it's been very effective, but those folks are just as busy as everyone else. We've also had a couple of missteps. We've had a couple of folks that we've put on that board that we thought would be really, really good assets that have turned out to be a little bit less so. And I can't say they've been terribly problematic, but they've been like everybody else. And sometimes they've been slightly disappointing in that they've not been able to show up and do the kind of things that they promised they were going to do. I would say that the tendency, I think, when you get really frustrated and impatient, is to just look at one of the big yard signs that's been posted at every intersection in town. And I want you to think about this. If somebody was able to think ahead enough to print 500 or 1,000 of those signs and spend the kind of time it took to get them out there, they may not be the people that are here to help you. They may be the people that are here to take advantage of the situation. That's a little bit too prepared for this kind of scenario. And I would say that just randomly getting somebody off a street sign is probably going to yield you very, very poor results. It's going to be overpriced, and chances are you might be asked to sign contracts that I would certainly advise against. Assignment of benefits and things like that are still a real problem. Although people seem to have gotten a little bit more wise, I think you're going to see a lot more poor results with unknown out-of-town contractors than you will with locals. If there's any possibility you can stay with local contractors or contractors nearby, people coming out of, say, Fort Walton, Pensacola, Tallahassee, if they're closer here, they're easier to reach out and touch, and they're easier for us and for you to find out things about. And just having a decent rating on the Better Business Bureau isn't always a perfect answer. That's certainly a place to look. But a lot of the information you get on the internet is put out by the very people that are suggesting that you hire them. So if you can, reach as deep as possible into your networks and as far as you can, and get as personal a recommendation as you find possible. The other question that we've gotten about repair work is the order of repairs and whether to hire trade contractors or a general contractor. The order of repairs is irrelevant in the insurance world. The insurance companies don't care what order you make your repairs in. What I would tell you is you need to do what makes sense. The first thing you need to do is get your roof fixed and get windows boarded up or get windows replaced. And you want to do things to be smart. You want to get drywall repaired and then painted before you redo your flooring, probably, things like that. But do what makes sense to you. If you rush out there and get a fence contractor today, that's fine, that's wonderful. But it's probably not as urgent as making sure you get a roofer on your roof. So spend your energies where your needs are the most critical and do things in order where it makes sense to you. Whether you hire a general contractor to handle it all or whether you hire individual tradespeople is really up to you, and it is probably dictated more by your comfort with the process and by your individual networks. My wife and I have decided that we probably are going to try to hire individual trade contractors for things. We'll hire a roofer. We'll hire a drywall person. We'll hire a paint person. We'll hire somebody to do flooring. And we'll do that individually as opposed to getting a general contractor to do that. That doesn't make it right. It just makes it right for us. Many folks would much rather hire a general contractor and have the general contractor do all of the work for them, and they've got one point of contact, makes it much easier, and then those general contractors can vet the individual subcontractors. And they're in a much better position than you and I are to evaluate out-of-town contractors. I know that there are some GCs in town that are looking at outside contractors coming in, and they're able to vet those guys much better than we can. And some, I think, are taking that as a position, particularly. I think Garrett Anderson, if I recall correctly, was spending an awful lot of time, instead of on people's roofs, at his desk doing exactly that. And that way he could make the most effective use of out-of-town contractors with good skills and good reputations. And so I think that's just as good an idea. It's just a matter of what works for you. And finally, I wanted to let everybody know that if you do get your wheels completely in a ditch, your adjuster isn't helping you, you don't feel like you're getting the right kind of attention from your agent, maybe these videos aren't helping you, there is another step that you can take, and you are entitled to mediation. Mediation that is supported by the insurance department. And when you get your initial estimate from the insurance company, it should have some information. Sometimes this letter comes separately, but they are required to notify you that this mediation is available to you. And you will have a third-party mediator available that will be able to work with you and your insurance company to be very sure that you are treated fairly, and that the insurance company fulfills their legal obligation to put you back in the same position you were in before Hurricane Michael hit. I hope that's been helpful tonight. We'll see you again on Wednesday, as we normally do. Again, try to be a little bit patient, especially on Monday, as we get the pipeline flowing again. And I hope everyone, again, had a good holiday. We'll see you Wednesday.